Great to see that there are still people here, although it's Friday afternoon. Makes me very glad. It's nice to be back in real life as well, to have some people to talk to. Hopefully, maybe get one or two questions afterwards. I'm going to talk about the journey that we have been on for a few years in Nordea in relation to AI. And it's going to be more about culture and people than a technical one, because that has been my experience that it's mainly about people and culture. So, if we talk about what is AI, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of going into sort of the definition of AI or anything like that. But it's interesting how AI technology and data is becoming a mainstream technology, but mindset and culture in large corporates have not followed, right? So there's this discrepancy between what the technology can do and what we as humans can think about what we can do with it. So if we talk about AI, we can say on one hand that it's a tool. So it's a tool like our chatbot. You know, and the tool there is actually the ability to match an intent with an answer. That's the technology thing. Then how you use that tool, how you create stuff around it and how you make it into something that the customer likes, that's a lot of other things. That's not AI. But on one hand, then, it's a tool. This is our chatbot, Nova. On the other hand, it can be something much, much bigger, like a platform on where you build something that transforms a business. And it's more like a state of mind. It's more like a way of thinking about things. And there are a few AI-first companies in the world. I think this particular one, this Moderna pharmaceutical company that barely existed 10 years ago, but they decided to be sort of fully digital, data-driven, and AI-powered company back then, was able to be a front runner in the race for COVID vaccine. So I think it's an example of what AI can do, and of course it's not so much AI, but AI might be the thing that boosted it, right? So I think AI is both just a tool and it's also state of mind. And so our journey in Nordea so far has been that we have moved from 2015. What technology did all the consultants start to call about in 15, 16? Anyone? Robotics. RPA was the thing in 16. 15 we started. 16 we scaled up. So I was part of building up our robotics army. We have some 300 robots or something like that today. So that was the 16. And then end of 16, 17, what did the consultants start calling about then? Chatbots. So chatbots was the thing in 16. SEB was one of them, and we were also there, talking about that was going to revolutionize the world, right? And then 16, 17, and then in 18, we started to talk about AI. So it's not that long ago when the large corporates in this part of the world anyway started to talk about AI. And since then we have talked about AI, and I think now data mesh is the new thing. So next year probably everyone is going to talk about data mesh. But anyway, I've been sort of introducing this new technology into the bank, and we have moved from, within the AI space, we have moved from being sort of an opportunistic POC factory to now moving into a more focused, building a scalable platform kind of creature. And we established then this AI hub earlier this year, and that's my responsibility to drive that hub, and I will come back a little bit on what that means. So why is this important now? Where is this sort of starting to be like a little bit of a race here now in terms of leveraging this new technology? And I think it's a few things. It is it is because we have become aware that AI works, machine learning works, right? Machine learning works, and it comes with new responsibilities. We heard Salah talk about it earlier, and we've heard others talk about it as well. It comes with new mindset and skills, of course, skills that we don't have a lot of in a large bank, for example. And it comes with, you can read the strategies of our business units. They address these issues about the need for being more data-driven in their interaction with customers and so on. And there are also new policies emerging. You are probably aware of the AI regulation proposal that came in April, which is it's a good thing. I mean, the thinking is good, I think. It is unclear. They don't define what AI is. They basically say AI is software. So I think there's some work to do there in terms of nailing down what it's going to address. But it's clear that Europe is taking a third way, right? We don't want to do the Chinese all implement and with little data integrity. They don't want to go the US way where the large corporates dictate the conditions. They want to be the regulative superpower that we are, and I think it's a good thing. I've chosen to view it as a good thing because in 10 years we're going to look back, I think, and see that it's probably good that we weren't too fast on this thing, and that we made sure that we built something that is beneficial for humans. But it's difficult in the short term to get stuff through. Especially the higher risk stuff. But there's then a lot of things that we now need to better understand. How can we leverage this technology to create value for Nordea as a bank? And that's what we are working on. And you could say we apply this. We apply AI in three different ways. We try to apply it in the customer interaction space, so make it more frictionless for the customer and be better at understanding and using the insights from the customers. We apply it in the way to superpower our employees. I have a colleague here somewhere who's working in the financial crime space, where they are, implementing models to reduce the noise and reduce the alerts by applying machine learning to reduce false positives, for example, right? And there are other tools that we also use, for example, churn prevention. And then there's, of course, the whole automation agenda. So instant banking, we call it. So basically making everything instant, as much as possible instant, and focus on the stuff that makes an impact on the customer, right? Because then it will also save cost. So we apply these tools. So this is about tools, and they're nice. They provide some efficiency gains, but are they transformational? Not yet, right? This is not transformational yet, and I don't really see that in any large corporate yet, how AI is transformational, but we're seeing the potential, right? But the greater challenge is here, how can we scale these things up? How can we broadening the perspectives and really realize bigger gains from using AI in this case, while at the same time complying with our values and our business requirements, our norms and regulations, right? That is the greater challenge, and this is what the AI Hub is about. The AI Hub is about trying to address this big thing, while at the same time continue to work on tools. So it's a balance act, right? And it's a difficult thing because we know that machine learning is disproportionately small part of these solutions. Most of the solutions that we're building there are other things that requires the most of the work. But it's disproportionately small, but it's the thing that makes it 10x or 100x or 1000x. It's also a challenge because data is hard. Data is super hard. I mean, it's to create good quality data and provide access to the consumer. It's a difficult thing because there's a lot of work, which is the iceberg is supposed to show. And then the right-hand side is from an article in Harvard Business Review here, saying that AI is about culture, and mindset and culture takes time to change. So the response that we have taken then is this. So this is how we frame, this is the framework for AI in Nordea. So we have our own brand. It's something that I pushed for a few years back when we had we were really going 3 years ago, and then we had a short AI winter for a couple of years, and now it's kind of spring again. So we're sort of moving ahead. But this brand is kind of just a way to collect ideas and people around the subject as such. And then the framework is basically built up of two parts. We have the pyramid, which is what we have focused most on. And it is composed of a strategy, which basically is saying what trajectory do we want to take, why do we want to do this, and what focus areas do we think that we should do. It's also related to we also have a target architecture for AI machine learning, right? So that provides us with a direction. Then we have the whole governance piece, which is we have focused a lot of work on, relating to new protocols, new guidelines, life cycle, stage gates, model repositories, and so on and so forth, right? This is, in the bank, of course, important stuff. And unless you have this right, you will never be able to scale AI. You might be having some nice use cases, but to scale things, you need this piece. And we have focused a lot on work on that. And then the bottom thing is the way of working, which basically is an operating model, which is a hub and spoke. And a hub and spoke is a common concept. You all know it. But I find it very interesting when you put a hub and spoke organization on top of a silo organization, and then you start to see all the boundaries. You start to see all the sort of inefficiencies in terms of organizational boundaries that don't make any sense in a world where we try to become data-driven, and we use these technologies that is kind of spans across a lot of problem-solving areas. So that is a clear revelation to me in the past year, that the effects that this has had in terms of connecting the right people with each other, cross domains, cross business units. And I can talk a lot about this experience, but I think it's really been the way to go for us, although we are still in the beginning. And then we have the 4 E's, as we call them. So the enablement, so basically providing infrastructure, tooling, easy-to-use protocols, and so on for the business, right? So basically implementing the governance, so and the tools they need to build stuff. The execution thing is how we try to build good teams. Maybe some of you listened to Eric Kohlmeister yesterday about how to set up high-performing teams. We're trying to get there, but this you also have to appreciate then that the bank looks different in different ways. So in some areas we might take a central commitment to develop something. In some areas you might do it locally, and sometimes you do a co-creation. You should have a process to cater for all, right? And sometimes you work with third party. More and more, I think we will see that we will work with third parties. Education is super important. All levels, all functions. Leaders need it. Analytics people need it. Experts need it. Translators need it. People in the front need it. So it's just an area which we have only scratched the surface so far. We have set up sort of a simple, easy-to-use curriculum. And then engage, which maybe is the most important thing right now, is how we are able to engage our internal talent to come and join us and work on this, and wanting to learn and to reskill and to build great things, basically, and how we also need to be a much more attractive partners for others to join Nordea, right? It's difficult for us, obviously, to compete with the cool startups and fintechs and so on, but I also see that, we have lots of data, we have lots of difficult problems, we have lots of tooling, so we have a lot of the things that these guys want. We just have some internal processes to fix, and that's what we're working on, right? So I think it could be so that, or I'm hoping that it can be so that we are becoming a more interesting company to work for in the future. We have to. So that's kind of how we frame it, and I will not go into this now. This is for the 40-minute presentation, but here I go into the. Yeah, I forget to talk a little bit about culture as well. The culture thing, which is the main point of this presentation, which kind of builds around the whole framework, right? The cultural aspect is how you shift your way of thinking. The mindset, the removing the barriers, the impediments, doing storytelling like I'm doing today, how you organize, how you see core innovation versus edge innovation, how you do transformative or how you do incremental improvements, the education, and how you really try to reinforce this throughout the organization, right? We are not there yet. I see few companies that are here fully yet, but if you look at the AI first companies of this world, of course, this is what they've gotten right. So what about the data, you ask? Yeah, it's all about data, actually. I will just say that it's all about data, and it's what I probably spend 80% of my time on. In the AI Hub, we spend most of our time on data enablement problems. So I think that we need to do for data what we have done for the AI in terms of structure and setup, and because the AI or machine learning follows the data, obviously, right? So it's really much more about data than about AI, but you know that, right? So the priorities for us right now for my hub is these 5 things on top of some other stuff. But 5 things are the key things. It's about the data enablement. How do we make sure that our key spokes that are solving now actually very impactful problems around churn and pricing and outflow, inflows, how can we make sure that they get access to the data they need and that we distribute the ownership of that data in a good way? The second thing is around the data science platform. So how can we open up our platform to the spokes so they become tenants and can do their exploration, the prototyping, and the productionization of models self-sufficiently? So those 2 things are of course key. And then use case support. We try to support as much as we can in making sure that the business is on the right trajectory with their use cases. I have found that you need some experience in data science to be able to judge what is the right problem to solve and what is not, and how to solve it. But once you figure that out, then you can go. Model validation is important for a bank. It's about actually how we get our models approved. And in the light of the EU regulation proposal, I think this is becoming even more important. So we're working a lot with that, and then we're working on guidelines for trustworthy AI at the moment. So those are the sort of the 5 key areas. So in conclusion, I would say that there are 5 things. One is, we're trying to build AI for all, not for some expert data scientists. It's the only way we're going to scale. We are trying to make sure that everything we do reaches some kind of production. We talked about kill the POCs, but unless you go to production in some way, you're not really learning a lot. and we try to really think about MVPs rather than POCs. Follow the data. The AI platform is nice, but we need to get the data right. Trust. Someone talked about that earlier today as well. If we can strike the balance between happy-go-lucky and, just passionate distrust about AI. You don't want to be in either of those two. You want to be in some kind of balance where there's informed trust. And to have informed trust, you need to understand what you're doing, and you also need to have some control mechanisms in place. And then the last point, of course, that it's all about people and culture. And I hope that has been somewhat come through in my talk here. So in these times of technology, it has never been more about people, I think. And I love this quote, by the way. I try to say to my dear leaders upstairs, the old bankers, don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. Who said that's not my quote, that's from Satya at Microsoft. But I think it's a great one. It encapsulates a lot about what we need to do now. So, thanks.